coming to judge this competition here today. We understand that y'all might have a few questions for us as far as our strategy and some of the things we did and why we did them. So hopefully we can answer a few of those for you before questions come. So initially, we discussed briefly the problem and the facts that were laid out in it through the client. We then took the step to put an agenda up on the board. I think we did a pretty good job as to sticking to that agenda. We mentally kind of ran through it in our head and made note of it back to the board when we needed to. That kind of kept us on topic and kept us moving throughout the whole mediation session.
Yeah, I think one thing we did early in this negotiation was somewhat established that we thought that no hard and fast budget had ever really been laid out. We felt that the around 100,000 instruction was a little ambiguous, and so we wanted that to be kind of a leverage point throughout the mediation. That we thought that our client was just doing his job, Mason was just doing his job, and there was nothing more than maybe a miscommunication, but we were not deliberately going over the budget. And I think we were able to kind of always point back to that whenever we were accused of going over the budget. So it was nice to establish that early on.
And as previously mentioned, we never really seemed to get too far off topic. There wasn't very much bickering back and forth between the clients, which helped facilitate a positive environment to work in. We definitely thought there could have been some hostility raised between the clients, given that one was out nearly $150,000 and the other still hadn't received pictures from his daughter's wedding. So we were able to stay on topic and keep the clients from bickering back and forth, and enabled us to reach our ultimate goals. We took strong positions on all our offers. We didn't feel as though we moved too terribly much from offer to offer. We did end up kind of in the middle area where we didn't necessarily get a great deal, but we furthered all of our clients' interest primarily by staying strong to our initial offers.
Looking at some of the things, I thought we could have done better in retrospect. From the very beginning, I noticed that we didn't do a good job of kind of telling the story to the mediator. I know that I kind of jumped right in and explained why I was upset or whatever, but I don't think either client or attorney ever did a good job of explaining to the mediator what exactly had gone on between these two parties that led them to this table here today. And I think that there's a chance that the mediator could have been a little bit lost, especially early on. So I think in future negotiations we'll probably try to make it a point to fill the mediator in from the outset of the negotiations.
And as far as our questions went overall, I think we did a great job listening good information for our side to use. There were a few questions that were probably poorly timed. There was one where we had asked the opposing side if they were married. That probably should have been disclosed early on. That was more so kind of like a jab at the other client. It would have been better. It would have fit better towards the beginning. And then we had gotten into a little bit of a discrepancy as to whether we understood that he was willing to pay $100,000 up front, since that's what he initially had kind of signed on for. We tried to determine whether he had an issue with paying the fee of the wedding planner, or if he had an issue with paying the expenses, or both. And I think that question just kind of was poorly worded and maybe kind of tried to push off the fee of the wedding planner. Ultimately, we ended up getting back on track, and we didn't really necessarily bet against ourselves as maybe we were kind of thinking we might have initially.
The only other thing that I think really stuck out and something that we could improve on and maybe didn't do like we should have done in this negotiation was during our caucus, we kind of got lost in the weeds on some math for our future offers, but at that point, we'd already used our break. We were in our caucus, and so I knew that it was about to get into a numbers game as far as the offers shooting back and forth in the last moments of the negotiation. So that's why I wanted to go ahead and try to get a structured plan of how we would proceed with offers if they continued to go like that. So, but maybe in the future we will have all our math worked out as far as the details before we come into the negotiation room.
And as far as furthering our clients' interests, the whole reason we're here, I think we did a good job at furthering all of the interest, as can be seen through offer that we agreed to. Initially, the client was willing to accept somewhere around $50,000. We ended up getting $100,000 up front. He wasn't requiring that the bad post be taken down, but we were able to get that included in our offer that we signed, which definitely helped his perception moving forward as a business. He wanted a positive post on the weddings.com website, which ultimately we tried to push for as much as we could towards the end, but it kind of seemed like we were kind of breaking down towards the end as far as putting a positive post out there went. It wasn't necessarily a requirement, so we kind of moved forward without requiring that post.
Ultimately, I think when we looked at this problem from a 30,000-foot view, that our client was concerned about his business interest with being responsible for all of these expenses that he hadn't yet paid to these vendors, and to his reputation. The problem indicated that he banked on his reputation to make a living, and that these posts were really tarnishing it, and this, maybe this whole disagreement in general. So with our agreement, we got more money than honestly the client was comfortable with even receiving. All of the expenses were covered. His business is going to be fine, and the things that were affecting his reputation are now taken down, and he can move forward. So I think overall we got a pretty good deal for our client.
Do you have any questions?
Well, my primary question you just answered, I was going to ask, because you seem to be really adamant about wanting a positive review in the beginning of the mediation. Not only did you want the 2 negative reviews taken down, you wanted a positive one posted as well. I didn't really like that you came off the positive review in your counteroffers, but now that now that you put it that way, that does make sense. You did get the negative reviews taken down, your bills are paid, and you can just move forward. So that I was kind of curious about that. You didn't really fight for that at the end.
Well, initially our client was willing to take substantially less money if they were willing to post positive reviews. We included the positive review post from the outset just because we thought if we brought the positive review post up towards the end of the mediation that it might cause some confusion. So we went ahead and included that in the beginning, kind of with the expectation that we probably weren't going to get it. And we realized at the end that there was a breakdown. Either we could take some money over time or take the positive reviews, and ultimately the client was more concerned with paying these bills and keeping his business afloat.
I have a question. What would have happened if you had suggested that instead of tossing money back and forth, you switch referrals? Since they are a affluent, wealthy group of people, could you have taken referrals from them and maybe offered a percentage off of their next wedding, or is there any way you could have incorporated referrals in a way to meet in the middle more?
Well, I think Cindy Hausman mentioned early on that this was his only daughter, and so I guess we could have articulated or asked more questions about what type of immediate family he had, or friends or connections. But that's definitely something that we were looking for, a creative solution in this problem, and I think that's definitely something that we could have used to kind of sweeten the deal. But I think based on how I was gauging the negotiation, anything above the 100,000, Cindy Hausman was kind of getting bad blood about, and so I'm not sure if any type of deal that required him to help us out, if we were going to require him to pay that money, would have worked based on the attitude I was kind of picking up from him. But it would have definitely been a useful alternative.
And based on, at least from my reading of the problem, I felt as though if we were dealing with the Taylor family, then yeah, absolutely, given their lavish lifestyle they live and the wealth they have. From how I interpreted it, though, the Hausman family was kind of this family that was marrying into wealth. They might not necessarily be coming from wealth. He had said previously he had eloped, and they weren't very wealthy initially starting out. So from my understanding, they were more so a family that was kind of just putting all this money out there for a one-time occurrence.
Any questions? All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, that was 10 minutes anyway.
Perfect.